Hello and welcome. I'm Tom.
And I'm Amy. It's great to be here.
Today we're tackling, well, a giant, William Shakespeare.
Definitely. And you've got quite the stack of sources for us, Tom. Biographical stuff, play analyses, his legacy.
Right, a really fantastic collection.
Mm-hmm.
And our aim today is to sort of sift through all this, pull out the key facts, maybe some surprising bits you didn't know.
And give you a real handle on his life, his incredible work, and, why we're still talking about him centuries later. Think of it as your cheat sheet to appreciating the bard.
Exactly. So let's jump right in and
Mhm.
unpack the story of William Shakespeare. We often picture Shakespeare as this, I don't know, almost mythical figure, right?
Mm.
But his beginnings were actually quite modest. Let's start there, Stratford-upon-Avon.
Yeah, and what's fascinating right away is how little we definitively know about his early years. We think he was born around April 23rd, 1564, but the only solid record is his baptism on April 26th. He was the eldest surviving son of John Shakespeare and Mary Arden. Now, John was a glove maker and a successful one, but he was also involved in town politics, alderman, even bailiff, which is like the mayor.
Ah, okay, so prominent locally.
Exactly. And Mary Arden, his mother, she came from a wealthier landowning family.
Right.
So not nobility, but certainly, respectable, well-established folks in Stratford.
Got it. And his education. We assume he went to school.
Almost certainly the King's New School right there in Stratford. It was a free grammar school, and the education would have been pretty intense. Lots of Latin classical authors.
The standard curriculum back then.
Right. It would given him a really strong foundation in rhetoric, literature, history, even though he didn't go on to university like some other playwrights at the time.
Okay, that makes sense. But then things take a turn personally pretty quickly. He married young, didn't he?
Very young. He was only 18. And he married Anne Hathaway, who was 26, in November 1582.
8 years older. And it was a bit rushed.
Seems that way. Their first daughter, Susanna, was born just 6 months later, May 1583.
Ah.
Then they had twins, Hamnet and Judith, in 1585. But tragically, Hamnet, the boy, died when he was only 11.
Wow, yeah. That must have been devastating.
Absolutely. And this early family situation in Stratford kind of sets the scene for the next big mystery.
Right, the famous lost years. After the twins' birth, he basically disappears from the records for, 7 years or so?
Exactly. Between about 1585 and 1592, the trail goes cold. And, well, that lack of information has led to all sorts of speculation.
Like what? What kind of stories pop up?
Oh, all sorts. The classic one is that he had to flee Stratford because he got caught poaching deer on Sir Thomas Lucy's estate.
Little rogue.
Maybe. Another story has him starting out holding horses for theater goers in London. Then there's the theory he was a schoolmaster up in Lancashire, maybe for a Catholic family named Houghton.
Interesting. Any truth to these?
Very little solid evidence, honestly. Most of it is hearsay, stories written down much later. It just highlights how little we know about people who weren't nobility back then. The records just aren't there.
So, a real blank space. But then, boom, 1592, he's in London. And not just in London, but he's already known enough as playwright to be attacked in print. That's quite an entrance.
It really is. That attack comes from Robert Greene, another playwright, who is clearly feeling threatened. Greene calls him this upstart crow, beautified with our feathers.
Ouch. Jealousy, basically.
Definitely sounds like it. Greene accuses him of thinking he's as good as university-educated writers. He even uses a pun on his name, calling him a Shakespeare.
Subtle.
Not very. But it tells us that by 1592, Shakespeare wasn't just starting out. He was already successful enough to be seen as serious competition. He'd arrived.
So he goes from upstart crow to, a major player pretty fast. How did he climb the ladder in the London theater world?
Well, a key move happened around 1594. His plays started being performed exclusively by one company, the Lord Chamberlain's Men. They were one of the top troupes in London.
And he wasn't just writing for them.
No, crucially, he became a shareholder, a part owner in the company. So he wasn't just getting paid per play, he was getting a cut of the company's overall profits. That's how he started making serious money.
Smart move.
Very. And then, when Queen Elizabeth died in 1603, the new king, James I, took the company under his wing. They became the King's Men.
Royal patronage, that's huge.
Huge boost in prestige, yeah. And this is where the Globe Theatre comes in, isn't it?
Right. The iconic Globe.
Exactly. In 1599, Shakespeare and several other key members of the company pooled their resources and built their own theater on the south bank of the Thames, the Globe.
Owning the venue, that's another level of business savvy.
Absolutely. It meant more control, more profit. It really set them apart. Later, they also took over the Blackfriars Theater, which was an indoor venue, better for winter performances.
So he's writing, acting, managing. Did he keep acting much?
He did continue to act, apparently often in older, sort of kingly roles. Tradition says he played the ghost in Hamlet, for instance, but writing definitely became his main focus.
And he's splitting his time between London and Stratford.
Seems so. He bought new place back in Stratford in 1597. It was the second largest house in town. So he's maintaining his roots, investing his money back home, becoming a respected gentleman there while being a star in London.
Okay, let's get to the heart of it. The works themselves. He was just incredibly prolific.
Astoundingly so. We have, 39 plays attributed to him, plus 154 sonnets, a couple of long narrative poems.
And these aren't just gathering dust. They're performed constantly everywhere.
More than any other playwright ever. Translated into pretty much every major language. It's phenomenal.
Talk us through the range. He didn't just stick to one genre, did he?
Not at all. He started out with histories, Richard III, the Henry VI plays, drawing on English chronicles, often with a bit of a pro-Tudor slant, you could say. And early comedies, too, like the Comedy of Errors, Pure Farce, and the Taming of the Shrew. Though Shrew is one that causes a lot of debate today because of its themes.
Right. The taming aspect is problematic for modern audiences.
Definitely. Then in the mid-1590s, you get these wonderful romantic comedies. A Midsummer Night's Dream, The Merchant of Venice.
Merchant also has its controversies. With Shylock.
Yes. The portrayal reflects the anti-Semitism of the time, and that's something you have to confront when looking at the play. But this period also gives us tragedies like Romeo and Juliet and Julius Caesar.
Classics.
Absolute classics. And then early 1600s, he hits what many see as his absolute peak with the great tragedies.
Hamlet.
Hamlet, yeah, maybe the most talked about character ever written. Then Othello, King Lear, Macbeth, just towering achievements. Macbeth is interesting, short, intense, very supernatural.
And then later, he shifts again.
Yeah, his later plays are often called tragicomedies or romances. Things like The Winter's Tale, The Tempest. They still have serious themes, moments of darkness, but they tend towards reconciliation and forgiveness in the end. A different mood.
It's an incredible arc. And we haven't even talked properly about the poetry, the sonnets.
Right, the 154 sonnets published in 1609 probably circulated privately before that. They're intensely personal, exploring love, desire, beauty, time, death.
And they have those mysterious figures, the fair youth and the dark lady.
Exactly. Who were they? Who was Mr. W.H., the Dedicatia? Endless speculation. It adds to the intrigue. And don't forget the narrative poems like Venus and Adonis and The Rape of Lucrece, which were actually very popular in his time, especially when the theaters were closed due to plague.
It's just staggering that we have all this work. How did it survive?
Well, some plays were published during his lifetime in small paperback versions called quartos. Sometimes maybe unauthorized, sometimes not. By 1598, his name on the cover was a selling point. But the really crucial thing was the first folio, published in 1623, 7 years after he died.
Compiled by his friends, his fellow actors.
Exactly. John Heminges and Henry Condell. They gathered together 36 plays, and here's the key thing. 18 of those plays had never been printed before.
Wow. So without them,
we might have lost Macbeth, Twelfth Night, The Tempest, Julius Caesar as you like it. Half his work, basically. It's arguably the most important book in English literature preservation.
Incredible. And his influence goes beyond just the plots and characters, doesn't it?
Yeah.
His impact on the English language itself is huge.
Oh, absolutely huge. You can see his style evolve, too. Early on, it's more formal, lots of elaborate metaphors. But he quickly develops this amazing flexibility with language, especially with blank verse, the unrhymed iambic pentameter.
That sort of heartbeat rhythm.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
But he learned to break it up, make it sound more like natural speech, use pauses, run on lines. It allowed him to express really complex thoughts and emotions. Think of Hamlet's to be or not to be speech. The language is the thought process.
So connecting all this,
Yeah.
why does he still matter so much today? Why should people, pick up Shakespeare?
Well, for starters, the language we speak is partly shaped by him. Estimates vary, but he's credited with introducing hundreds, maybe over 1,700 words into recorded English.
Really? Like what?
Words like eyeball, swagger, bedroom, lonely, and countless phrases we use all the time without thinking. Love is blind, wild goose chase, break the ice, foregone conclusion. in a pickle.
Wow, okay. You don't even realize.
Exactly. And beyond language, he just expanded what drama could do. The depth of his characters, the complexity of his plots. He influenced everything that came after. Literature, theater, even film and music. Think of all the adaptations. Kurosawa's Throne of Blood from Macbeth, Verdi's operas.
It really is global.
Totally. He's the best-selling playwright ever, billions of copies sold, translated constantly. Ben Jonson, his contemporary and rival, said it best. He was not of an age, but for all time.
Not of an age, but for all time. That's powerful.
It really sums it up. Even though some people, like George Bernard Shaw, mocked the intense bardolatry, the worship of Shakespeare, he just keeps getting reinterpreted and finding new audiences everywhere.
Okay, so we have this monumental body of work, this huge legacy.
Mm-hmm.
But the man himself, William Shakespeare from Stratford, still has some question marks hanging over him,
Right.
which fuels a lot of speculation.
It does, and it's interesting why these questions persist. The biggest one is probably the authorship question.
Right, the idea that maybe he didn't actually write the plays.
Exactly. This idea didn't really surface until, like, the mid-19th century, over 200 years after his death. People started proposing other candidates, Francis Bacon, the Earl of Oxford, Marlowe.
What's the argument?
Often it comes down to his background. How could a glovemaker's son from Stratford, who didn't go to university, have the knowledge of court life, law, foreign languages, etc., shown in the plays? Now, mainstream scholars overwhelmingly reject this. They point to all the contemporary evidence references by other writers, records of payments, his name on the quartos and the folio, his acting career, and they argue the grammar school education was actually very thorough and London itself was a place you could learn a lot. But the debate, particularly outside academia, just keeps going.
A persistent mystery. What about other personal aspects? Religion, sexuality?
Both debated. There's evidence his family, particularly his mother's side, had Catholic sympathies, which was risky back then. John Shakespeare, his father, was fined for not attending church, sometimes explained as avoiding debt collectors, but also a known excuse for Catholics avoiding Anglican services. Shakespeare himself seems to have outwardly conformed to the Church of England, but his private beliefs, hard to say.
And his sexuality, based on the sonnets?
Largely, yes. The intense emotional language used towards the fair youth and the contrasting passion for the dark lady lead to speculation about his relationships. Were they romantic, platonic, poetic convention? Again, we can't know for sure.
And we don't even really know what he looked like, do we?
Not definitively. There are no portraits commissioned during his life that we can be 100% certain about. The two most likely likenesses are the engraving by Droeshout in the first folio, which people who knew him presumably approved,
Wow.
and the bust on his funeral monument in Stratford. There are other contenders, like the Chandos portrait, but nothing is absolutely confirmed. It just adds another layer of, enigma.
So as we wrap this up, it's clear that while parts of Shakespeare's life story remain, well, a bit like one of his own complex plots, full of questions.
Yeah.
His words, his characters, they just keep speaking to us, don't they?
They absolutely do. Across centuries, across cultures, he gives us this incredible lens on what it means to be human.
It really makes you think.
Hmm.
What is it about great art that lets it endure, even when the artist themselves remains partly in shadow?
A great question. He truly is, as Johnson said, for all time. Constantly rediscovered, always relevant.
Thank you for your attention. You can subscribe to our podcast if you like it.
See you next time.